What external assessment resources are included in the new Units 3 and 4 student book?
Okay, great. Well, one of the major changes with the new version of the textbook, given our new 2025 syllabus, is the inclusion of our Chapter 12, which focuses exclusively on the external exam, which is a real top-of-mind issue for all students in Year 11 and 12 to look forward to. So with this chapter, what we've really done is broken the chapter down to look at the external exam and also to look at the components of it. So the first component that we get to in the chapter is looking at the multiple choice questions. And for what we've done here is we've given 10 multiple choice questions showing the actual question and then the correct answer and why that's the correct answer. So it actually breaks it down for students so they can see which one they would have chosen and then why that, why the correct answer is in fact the one that they should have chosen with a justification. And it's really important that students learn how to be able to justify their answers to check their thinking when they're doing multi-choice problems. The next section we have is looking at our short response questions. And again, what we've done is we've provided you some sample short response questions, and we've tried to give you a variety based on, past exam papers and the types of questions and the mix and variety we've seen over recent years. So the one here, for example, is just a pretty straight theory question. And what we've done is we've given you the question and then we've tried to explain how it's broken down. So what cognition is this really acting on? So what command do we want the student to respond to so that the student understands to look for that and to respond to the question at the right level? And that's important in short response because we want students to be answering short response questions in the time and word limit that it deserves. So if it's a 4-mark question and they've given you literally a third of a page of lines, stick to that because it's probably an explain level question. Answer it at an explain level, response. Don't give 200 words and go, over the top. So this is how it's broken down. It also relates it to the actual syllabus item. So where did this come from in the syllabus and what topic? What does the question want you to do? It breaks it down and kind of gives you an idea, a bit of a roadmap on how to answer this question, but also common tricks and tips that you might fall into or you might be tempted to do. Just avoid these. So just avoid these things. And we've done that for each type of short response questions. So in that chapter, we've got simple theory questions. We've got short response questions that have a bit of stimulus with it, where you actually have to apply, and also short response questions where you might actually have to answer with the written text and also draw a model. So it actually shows you all of that. So this is a scaffold as to the actual answer for that previous question and the breakdown that we gave you. So it shows you where we've actually explained the concept, how we've identified the 2 key things that we need to talk about, which is the role of automatic stabilisers and what they do during a slowdown in economic growth, and then how we actually put these 2 things together. And what we've done for each question sample answer is actually colour code them so you can see, okay, this is where we talked about the first point, this is where we talked about the second point, and this is how we've demonstrated the relationship between the 2 things. External exam, which is the extended response question. And in the chapter, we've given an actual extended response question, the actual question and the stimulus and the breakdown of it, just like we did with the short response, and we've given you a full sample response to look at. So you can actually see how is this actually all put together and what would a finished product look like in this case. And also what would a finished product look like in the kind of guidelines that the, QCAA puts down on their paper. So, typically they're looking for a 400 to 600 word response. What does that actually look like for a student? What would that look like for a student to write it out? And, what would that look like on paper? So we've actually given a sample response that would then hit each of the components of the marking guide. And here is the actual marking guide breakdown for the extended response one. So rather than colour coding the whole response, which would be very confusing and hard to follow, what we've done here is said, okay, these are the elements in that sample response that a marking guide would look for. This is how many marks it is. So this is what we would look for down that left-hand column. And this is the example of where it actually turned up in the actual sample response. And you can see this is how the marks for that question build up. Okay, then at the end of the chapter, we've actually provided an external assessment practice paper. And it's a full paper. It has 10 multiple choice. It has a series of short response questions and an extended response. So students can actually take this and use it as another form of a mock. You could use it as a teaching aid in your class. So you could actually potentially, copy and put it up on a board and get students to work on it. So you could use it in that initial phase of teaching. You could actually use it, as an actual take-home exam. You could even use it as an in-class exam, task if you really wanted to. But it gives you a lot of options to use it in your teaching in various ways, depending on where your students are at and depending on, where you're at in the term, how far along are they in that preparation for that external exam. So you can use it in a lot of different ways, but it's definitely a full paper ready for you to go with.